Hello, my name is Carrie, and I'm going to tell the story of my stillbirth. I've seen some other people do a story of their stillbirth, and it's been helpful to me. And even though there's other stories out there, I figure, why not do one more? You never know who you might help. So, and I don't know if I'll help anybody or not. I don't even know if anybody will watch this. But here it goes. So as I said before, my name is Carrie, and I'm 32. My stillbirth was with my first child, Deanna Rose, and I lost her at 31 weeks. At least to my knowledge. I don't know exactly how long she had been dead when I found out, so that's where I understand her to have been. Okay, so I don't know how short I can keep this. I'm gonna try, but I want to give some details. So let's see. I got pregnant in June of 2012. And I was super excited to get pregnant. When I found out I was pregnant, I had already been having symptoms, so I was pretty sure I was pregnant. I had wanted to be pregnant, and my husband and I were trying. We were one of those couples who is lucky and gets pregnant the first time we tried. I had actually... A lot of people temp and a lot of people do ovulation kits where you pee on a stick and it tells you whether you're ovulating or not. I didn't do any of that. What I did do, and you can look it up online, is the Billings ovulation method. And that's where you chart your mucus throughout your cycle. So, when you get the stretchy mucus that doesn't break, you can squeeze it between your index and your thumb, your index finger and thumb. So when you do that and it's stretchy and doesn't break, then that's fertile mucus. And that's what we did. And it worked. So when I was having that stretchy fertile mucus, that's when we baby danced. So, and actually your most fertile day is not necessarily your day of most fertile mucus. You can have a ton of fertile mucus and have that not be the day you ovulate. So a lot of people might be confused about that, but that's what the facts are. And that's the way it was with me too, because the day that I had the most fertile mucus and I wanted to jump my husband so bad, we actually didn't baby dance that day, and we waited 2 days or 3 days before we baby danced. And because, to be honest, we were hoping we'd get a boy. So we were trying to wait until the peak day, and I don't know if we landed on the peak day or not, but I felt like I was pregnant the very next day after we baby danced. So I'm kind of thinking we probably got it on the peak day. Anyway, I felt dizzy the next day, and I don't usually feel dizzy in the way that I felt dizzy. And that was one of the things that made me think I was pregnant. That and the fact that when we did baby dance, I swear that I could feel my cervix sucking up those guys like a Hoover. I don't know if anybody else has ever had that experience before, but that was mine, and I don't know if that's the way it is for me every time because I haven't gotten pregnant again. So I don't know. Deanna is my first and so far only child, and so I don't know. Anyway, I guess I'll let you guys know if it is that way. So, let's see here. Sorry if I'm giving you TMI, but what the heck. So, we went and had our nuchal translucency at 12 weeks, like you should. And, oh, by the way, we did what's called the Cabbage Test. If you've never done the Cabbage Test or have heard of the Cabbage Test, that's where you get a purple cabbage and you chop it up and you boil it in water, or you can add already boiled water, hot boiled water to it. It has to be hot, of course, and let it steep so that the water turns purple from the cabbage, and then you take 1 part of the cabbage water and 1 part pea, so it's equal parts, and mix them together. And if it turns purple, it's a girl, and if it turns pink, it's a boy. And when we did that, it turned purple, and so according to the Cabbage Test, we were having a girl. And you do that at 10 weeks when you're 10 weeks pregnant. So anyway, we did that. And I was in denial. I really was wanting to have a boy for my husband. So anyway, and then we also did the needle test. And according to that, it was saying that I was having a boy. So we had one test saying boy and one saying girl. And anyway, so had the nuchal translucency at 12 weeks, and that's where they measured the fluid in the baby's neck to see if there's any indication that the baby might have Down syndrome or spinal bifida, or any other kind of abnormality. I don't know if that's really the right word to use, and I'm so sorry if it is the wrong word to use. Anyway, and I feel like I should know what the other things are that it checks for, but I can't remember. And so I know there's other people that will watch this and they'll be like, it is, I know what it is. Sorry. I just don't know. I guess I could have prepared better. Anyway, I'm not going to worry about it right now. So, let's see. We had that nuchal translucency, and at that point in time, even though they can tell at the 12-week ultrasound if baby behaves, we didn't find out what the gender was at that point. And so at our 20-week anatomy ultrasound, that was when we found out what we were having. We found out we were having a girl, and we wanted to find out. And as soon as I found out that she was a girl, my first reaction was disappointment for my husband that it wasn't a boy, and then just absolute excitement that I was having a baby girl. I thought that was wonderful. And so we had the anatomy ultrasound, and we were told that our baby girl was perfect. And I had the name Deanna Rose all picked out. I'd had the name Deanna picked out since high school, so I knew that was going to be her name. Anyway, I knew it was going to be her name, except except that I had to win my husband over. I guess I should put it that way. So anyway, we went, I'll jump ahead to our baby moon because we did that in December, and that was the beginning of December we did that. We went on our baby moon, which is when you go on a vacation, just the two of you, the last one you're ever going to have before you have, before you have your baby. And I got nauseated and sick on our baby moon from having gone on too long of a hike in too hot of a climate and got nasty sick from it. Anyway, I have fond memories of that. Then we came home from that, and I had my glucose screen and found out I had high blood pressure. And I was in my 3rd trimester when I found out that I had high blood pressure, because I found out right after I had the glucose screen. Anyway, every time I tell this, I tell it different, so I'm sorry. The same day I had my glucose screen, I went down to our labor and delivery department because of my high blood pressure. My doctor wanted them to check it for me again, because he'd already checked it in the office and he didn't like how high it was. And so I had it taken in the labor and delivery, and they did a non-stress test at the same time. And my blood pressure never did go down. It was high the whole time. My diastolic was in the 90s, which, from what I understand, that was the number they were really concerned about, was the diastolic. And the diastolic is the lower of the two numbers. When you see a blood pressure, and the bigger number, the systolic is the top number, and the now I can't say it, the diastolic is the lower number, or the bottom number, I should say. But it should be the lower number, too. Generally, I think they like it to be 120 over 70, and I was more like 134 over 93 or something like that. I can't even remember exactly, but it was something like that. So they put me on medication, and I didn't like taking it because I felt like I was taking poison, but I felt like it was better for me to take it, even though I didn't feel like I should take it, because I also felt like it was important for me to do it because of my baby. It's really hard to explain that, because I didn't want to take it because of my baby, and I did want to take it because of my baby. So how do I explain that? I guess the fear of my high blood pressure hurting her was greater than my fear of the medication hurting her, maybe? I don't know. Anyway, that's what happened with that. And I was noticing that her movement was decreasing. And it was decreasing after I started taking the medication, and that was, I think, another reason why I didn't feel good about it. So, sorry if I'm frowning. I'm not trying to make goofy faces. Anyway. So, I found out I had just mild gestational diabetes, and I had to check my blood sugar 4 times a day. I had to take it first thing in the morning, and before I'd eaten anything, and then I had to take it an hour after I ate breakfast, an hour after I ate lunch, and an hour after I ate dinner. And that's an hour after the first bite of food, not the last bite of food. It's the first bite of food. So I had to pay attention to what time did I start eating. You know, when was my first bite of food. So I had to do that, and I had to keep track of my blood pressure, and I had to take my medicine. And I saw my doctor on the 15th of January. He came into my work. I work in a medical center, and so and I'm in the medical records department. So I talked with him about how I wasn't feeling her move as much, that I was feeling bothered by that. I didn't feel like I could do my kick counts. And my kick counts, I don't know that I was ever really able to do them the way you're supposed to, because you're supposed to see how long it takes you to get 10 kicks in an hour period. And I don't think I ever really got 10 kicks when they told me to start keeping track. And that was bothersome to me. It was bothersome to me because I wanted to be able to do what they asked me to do, and I wasn't able to do it. And I was concerned because I knew decreased movement was a bad thing. And so that doctor sent me down to the labor and delivery, and because he took me seriously. This was my first pregnancy, and he still took me seriously. And I am grateful to him for that. So I went down and had the non-stress test done, and she kicked more than she had kicked in days. She was fine. She was fine at the first non-stress test that I had earlier that month when they put me on the medication, and at this one on the 15th of January, she did fine, and she kicked more than she had kicked in days, like I said. So, that helped me feel better. But then I didn't feel her kick anymore again after that, after the stress test was over. I would feel her hiccup, but I wouldn't feel her kick, and it bothered me for the same reasons. So I had a prenatal appointment on January 17, and I talked to the doctor about it. It was a different doctor than sent me down to the labor and delivery, and I explained how worried I was, that I wasn't able to do the kick counts, and I was concerned, and that doctor said that that's maybe how my baby is, not to worry about it. And so I thought, well, the doctor knows what they're talking about. She must be okay. And they listened to her heart with the Doppler, or the doctor did. And she had a heartbeat, and they said she was fine, and I went home. So they increased my medication, and I had been on it for around 5 days at a higher dose. It wasn't the first time they had increased it, but they had increased the dose, and usually about 2 days after I had started a higher dose, I would start getting headaches when I would start a higher dose, and after 2 days they would quit. And it had been more like 5 days, and the headaches still hadn't quit. I was feeling really icky, yucky, just blah. So I called them, and I made an appointment to go in, and I saw my doctor. And I saw the doctor that had sent me down for the NST, the non-stress test. And I told him how I was doing, and he I don't even remember what we said, what we talked about. I mean, I know we talked about how I was feeling and my blood pressure, but I don't even remember what was said anymore, because what happened afterward was so much more important. Because that was when he listened with the Doppler he was trying to find her heart, and he couldn't find her heartbeat. And he went all the way around my belly button trying to find her heartbeat, and he couldn't find it. So he tried on both sides of my stomach, my upper stomach, my lower stomach. He went all the way around trying to find her heartbeat, and he couldn't. And that really scared me because they could always find her heartbeat right away. All the doctors could. I had 5 different doctors. I had seen all 5. They all were able to find her. He'd found her before. So I didn't understand why he wasn't finding her heartbeat. And I even said something about it, that normally they could all find her right away. And he didn't say anything. And he said that he needed to take me to the sonogram room. And so he did. And when he said that, even before he said that, I had noticed his face had changed. He looked worried and concerned, and that made me feel worried and concerned, in addition to everything else. And so he took me to the sonogram room, and he put her up on the sonogram, and he told me she had no heartbeat. And he got another doctor to come and confirm that there was no heartbeat. And the doctor came and confirmed that they couldn't find a heartbeat either. And that's how they told me, was that she had no heartbeat. And I was in so much shock. I thought, they can't be telling me she's dead. And I thought that just because she has no heartbeat, she can't be dead. And I thought, it felt like this had to be somebody else they were telling this to, not me. And the only way I could figure out how to ask if she was dead was to ask them what happened next, because I didn't want to ask if she was dead. So I asked them, what happens next? What do we do next? And they told me that they would induce me. And then I realized they really were saying that she was dead. So, they asked me if there was anything they could do for me, and I said, yes, call my husband, because he wasn't there with me. And this was an impromptu appointment, and so he hadn't been there. He probably wouldn't have been there anyway. Not because he didn't care, but because it wasn't one of those exciting appointments where you are seeing the baby, or at least wasn't planning on seeing the baby. And so he wasn't there. So they had called him, and they had told him that I was okay, but to drop everything and to come get me. And he did. He dropped everything. He came and he got me. And when he got there and found me in the room that I was in, I was still in the sonogram room. That was when they let him know. But he already knew. He had his own suspicions as to why they had called him. So we went home because we had wanted to go in that night to get induced, but we couldn't because all of the labor and delivery rooms were full. And so we went home, and I cried all evening, and my mom got here, and we went to bed, which was really hard. I don't even know if I got a whole 6 hours of sleep, because I slept for 3, woke up, couldn't go back to sleep, and then I don't know how long it took me to go back to sleep. So I don't even think I got 6 hours. And then we went the next morning to the hospital, to the medical center where I work, and got induced. And so from the beginning to the end, the entire thing was something like 13 hours. which I've heard it's pretty good because inductions can last 2 to 3 days. So 13 hours in comparison is really good. Because Deanna was dead, I was able to receive Demerol when I went into transition. I didn't take it until I was in transition. I didn't think that I wanted to have an epidural, and I never did have an epidural. I didn't like the idea of them sticking something into my spinal column. I just didn't like the idea of that. So, they induced me with a medication called Cytotec, and if you've seen Born in America or The Business of Being Born, you will have heard of Cytotec and how it is a bad drug. And I'm not going to say it's not a bad drug, and I'm not going to say it's a good drug either. I just know that's what they use to help me have my baby, and I'm still alive. And why it does what it does to some women, I think what it does is it can rupture your uterus, and I certainly did not want that to happen to me, but I didn't know how else they could induce me. I don't know what my other options were because I didn't ask. I just figured this is what I have to do to get my baby out. And I knew I didn't want to walk around with her inside me for 2 more months because I was 31 weeks and I was exactly 2 months away from my estimated due date when this happened. I had her on January 24, and my estimated due date was, depending on whether you went by my ultrasound or my last menstrual period, my ultrasound, my due date was March 23rd based on my ultrasound, and on going by my last menstrual period, my estimated due date was March 24. So this last weekend, because today is March 29, so this last weekend that just happened was her estimated due date. So if I had not lost my baby, I would have a live baby with me right now. And even though it's been 2 months, my milk came in, it came in the day after we left the hospital, and we left the hospital on the 25th. So my milk came in on the 26th of January, and it was painful. But I'll get to that. I'm realizing I'm jumping ahead. So, when I was in transition, I got the Demerol and I got Phenergan because I was throwing up. And I'm so sorry for telling this out of order. I'm a perfectionist, and so I'm not going to like this. But anyway, I had her at 10:49 in the evening on January 24, and the Demerol had made me loopy. It made me loopy and tired. I couldn't stay awake. I tried to keep my eyes open, and I couldn't keep my eyes open. And then it made me say stuff that I don't remember saying. People told me what I said afterward, and I don't even remember what they told me I said. So, that's how much sense it made. Pardon me. Let's see. Okay, so when I was in labor, I would wake up from, because I was having a contraction, and I would tell my mother, who was there holding my leg, that, Mom, I need to pee, I've got to pee, and she would tell me it was the contraction, and I'd be like, no, I've got to pee, and she told me, one of the times that I was telling her this, she finally told me, if you need to pee, go on ahead and pee in the bed, that they'll clean it up, don't worry about it, they do it all the time. And it made me so angry when she said that, that I thought to myself, fine, I will. And so I tried to pee, and then when I realized I couldn't pee, I realized that my mom was right and it was a contraction. So I would wake up and I would tell my mom, I've got to pee, and she'd tell me, no, it was a contraction, and then I would nod off. I'd go right back to sleep. So that was what that was like. When I delivered her, when I pushed her out, the loopiness, the snowed over feeling completely disappeared. I think that's from all the rush of hormones that you get from having a delivery, all of the hormones that rush through a mother's body. And I was aware of myself again. And before I had her, I didn't know if I wanted to hold her or not. I didn't know if I wanted to see her or not. And after I had her, I knew that I wanted to see her. I knew I wanted to hold her. And I'm glad I did. I think I would have regretted for the rest of my life if I hadn't held her. They gave her to me as soon as I got her in a blanket. They handed her to me. I was the first person to hold her after the doctor and nurse had held her, touched her. Although I don't know if I would say the doctor had actually held her. But the nurse had to pick her up and hand her to me, so the nurse held her before I did. But I was the first one to hold her after that. And she was beautiful. She was beautiful to me. Her eyes were swollen from the delivery, and she was only 2 pounds and 14 inches long, and she was so tiny. But despite how tiny she was, she had a full head of hair, and she looked like me. I have since put my newborn baby picture next to hers, and I can see that she had the same nose, the same lips, the same cheeks that I had when I was born. So she was like another me. And she had my husband's feet and hands, and she was beautiful to me. For me, she was the most beautiful baby I had ever seen. And that's exactly how a mother should be about her baby. Your baby should be the most beautiful baby to you. Because it's your baby. And it's more than that. It's more than just that she was mine. But it's so wonderful that I don't even really know how to put it into words. There's just something so special about it. And unless you're a parent, you won't really know what I mean until you have a baby of your own. I know people say stuff like that all the time, but it's true. Having experienced what I've experienced, having had a baby even though she wasn't alive when I had her, and And even though I never saw her open her eyes or heard her cry, make a sound, I loved her. I still love her. I will always love her. I didn't cry once that day. I never cried the whole day. I didn't cry on her birthday. I cried the day before and I cried the day after. And I've cried after that, but not every day. I cry when I need to. I guess I needed to. So, I held her. I opened up her blanket and I looked at her, but because her skin was, it looked really sticky, and I was afraid that if I touched her, that I would tear her skin or break her. I was so afraid I would break her somehow. Because she wasn't alive, I knew that if I hurt her, that there wasn't anything that would fix it, you know. And so I didn't want to touch her for fear of hurting her. And so I never touched her. I held her, but I didn't touch her. I opened the blanket because I wanted to see all of her. But even though I did that, I couldn't see all of her. In fact, I still have not seen all of her. I don't know if I will ever see all of her. There may be a way that I might be able to, because they took pictures at the hospital, but at this point I don't know if I will ever get those. Not because they don't want to give them to me. There's a whole issue with that I'm not going to get into on here. So, my husband, I handed her to my husband, and he was crying, and he cried the hardest I've ever seen him cry. I hadn't known how much he loved her until he held her. When he held her, when I handed her to him, that was when I knew. And I think that was when he knew. Because up until that point, I don't think he knew how much. In fact, he told me he didn't know how much he loved her or how much he had wanted her. So, that was a very special moment for me. His parents were there and my parents were there, and we all held her. Everybody there got to hold her. And we held her again the next day. And then we went home. And they give you a bear at the hospital so that you don't have to go home empty-handed, that you don't have to be rolled out of there without holding something in your arms, because normally when they wheel you out, you're holding your baby. And I didn't even hold the bear. I don't know why I didn't hold the bear, but I didn't. At least I don't remember holding the bear. I don't think I held the bear. But I do remember feeling empty. And when I went and got into our vehicle to come home, when I went to buckle my seatbelt, you get so used to having to readjust the seatbelt because you've got a big belly and you have to keep it underneath your big belly. And I had gotten so used to readjusting my seatbelt that I started to do it automatically, and when I realized what I was doing and why I was doing it, and the fact that she wasn't there anymore, I almost cried. I didn't let myself cry because I didn't want to cry right then. Even though I know my husband would have been there for me, I wanted to be strong, and so I didn't cry. And maybe I should have. I guess if I could go back and do it over, I would. But I didn't, and I can't change that. So like I said, my milk came in, and when your milk comes in and you do not have a baby to feed, and when that was how you were planning to feed your baby, because that is how I was planning to feed my baby, I was going to breastfeed her, and I never really worried what my milk supply was going to be like. And apparently I didn't have a reason to worry about it, because my breasts got so big and so hard, and when I couldn't take it anymore, we went and got a breast pump, and I pumped 2 ounces from each breast. So I had a total of 4 ounces after, and that was the first time I pumped, and even though I got that much out, I probably could have gotten out more. It did help my breast not to be so rock hard, but it didn't solve it completely, because they were still rock hard in places. Maybe not so much on the top, but down underneath, they were still hard. And I poured that milk down the drain. There are milk banks that you can give your milk to, but because I knew I was going to be going back to work and I did not want to keep my milk supply up, I chose not to donate my milk. And I am working again, and I've been working for about 3 weeks, and it's been hard. I guess I'll have to do a whole nother video just on that, because it deserves a video of its own. So, I guess that's it. I miss my baby, and I think I always will. From what I hear, you always do, and you always will. And so far, that's been true for me. I don't think that there's anybody who it wouldn't be true for. There is so much to say. Well, if you did watch this, thank you for watching. And until next time.